Domestic violence is often a hidden epidemic. It is deeply embedded in silence and fear. For everyone, recognizing domestic violence indicators is a matter of societal responsibility. It's about fostering a culture where abuse is not tolerated, where victims are empowered to seek help, and where abusers are held accountable for their actions. I want to start by welcoming two of my closest and best friends who have been in my life for over 8 years, supporting one another and being there for each other. Thank you for your time, for your vulnerability, courage, and openness to be here today. Both are power forces, smart and strong women who have gone through life-changing experiences regarding domestic violence and are here today to share their learnings and wisdom. Let's start our conversation by exploring our first theme, the normalization of abuse. I want to start with you, Liza, because we share some similarities in our experiences, but why do you think we tend to minimize the significance that abusive behaviors have in our relationships?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Jimena, for having me and Fernanda in the podcast. As your question comes into me, I'm just thinking about how it's actually hard to get the signs of it, because it starts with really, really small things in your life. I mean, you are not abused one day of another because, I don't know, that person decided to hit you or to scream you really loud. I mean, that's not how it happens. It happens in a way that you are not noticing, and those tiny details are so hard to be aware of, because maybe, you are ashamed of yourself, or maybe you are scared of being vulnerable and ask for a better treatment, right? But the first sign of abuse is very hard to see, very hard to understand that it's abuse. Now I know, but in that point in my life, I didn't know that was abuse, because for me, abuse was this person that was really angry all the time, or I will be scared of. I mean, abuse to me was not someone that was trying just to control me, for example.
And this takes me to Fernanda, right? One of the story of your closest friends, I think, is one of the most shocking stories that anyone can ever live through. And it deeply changes the way your life is as a before and after. Would you like to share more about it and how it impacted you?
I think this is one of the story that has most made like an impact in my life, because it's really hard to get this news one day of a person you love and you care, and that they tell you is she's gone and she's not with you anymore. And I remember that call when another friend from school called me and told me, look, our friend is dead. And I was like, what? Her husband killed her. We see this news on the paper and in the TV, or we hear about other people that has gone through this experience. You sometimes think, no, this is not going to happen near my circle.
Living sometimes the abusive relationship is complex and it's not always straightforward. In some cases there are children involved. In some others there is a lack of financial independence that prevents victims from having a backup plan. And in other cases, victims have been isolated from their family and friends and they don't have anyone to ask for help. It's sometimes very hard, and it even reminds me of one time when I was with my first boyfriend. One of the main reasons I never denounced what happened to me was because I was an immigrant in another country, that I didn't feel comfortable and safe, in which I didn't trust police, and having to go through a process where I have to stay in another country, where I have to go through documentation, speaking up, like, of course, sometimes a sentence, and of course, sometimes reaching out to the legal officers and the legal institutions might help get more data, more statistics, and move things forward. But at that moment, not only are you vulnerable, but you can't forcibly do it, because these processes are filled with like shame and guilt and questions. But it also makes me wonder about you, Fernanda, in the way of how now you see in your relationships, right? How if now you're like overly looking out for signs, if now you're like always worried, how did that experience change you?
I don't know. It changed my whole perspective. And what I think is the most important for me is like, listen to your friends, what's going on in their life. just listen, because sometimes we tend to fill our conversations with talking, and we don't listen to the person that maybe is having the biggest struggle right now. So just listen to your friend.
I think is very important the way that either we as friends or we as healthcare practitioners or we as police officers or we as social workers treat victims and survivors really says a lot of how we would be treating our friends, our family. And seeing each other as humans has a really great role in the way of the outcomes and how it will result. And this takes me to our final theme, which is the frustration of observing. Sometimes when you're a healthcare practitioner, a doctor, or someone as a friend, you're seeing everything through lenses. You're seeing everything from far away. And it's very hard to see someone enduring all of these situations without you being able to intervene, without the victim making a change, and you're just observing and seeing how everything unfold. And for me, it's also interesting to know your opinion, Liza, because it's kind of interesting that you were in a similar situation, but you also now have friends that are and were in the same shoes that you were walking at one point. How does that feel to observe them from another perspective and to see yourself in their stories? How do you deal with that?
At first, coping was really hard. Because I think I was still healing that moment in my life. And actually, I do believe I just healed it. I mean, I still have things that I will think about at night, or I don't know, when I'm daydreaming, but the anger and the sadness is not there anymore. When you are seeing your other friends being in my shoes, it's really hard. And at first it was really, I will get really mad. Not with them, I will never share it. I will want to scream like, come on, open your eyes. This is not the way things are supposed to be. At first it was really hard, but now I'm just seeing it with a lot of love and light. Because now I do understand what's happening inside her to let these type of things happening. And I would only feel peace because I'm already out of it. And then I will want to talk about it, not in an invasive way, or an intrusive way, but as a way that they could feel that someone understands them.
What do you wish people would understand about domestic violence? That perhaps it's not on top of their mind, perhaps not everyone has learned a lot since the experiences that you went through?
It's really common. It's important to talk about this, but not about the greatest cases we've heard about, but let's talk about the small details, the subtleties, how violence is really rooted into our culture.
To remember that this type of violence is not just about physical violence. Like, you can include emotional and psychological, verbal, financial, sexual abuse, because it's mostly about understanding that it's about power and control, this type of situations, and understanding that support is critical, and that we all have a role in these type of problems. We need to be more self-aware about that. We all have a role in this situation to stop the cycle of violence.
Men can be abused, children can be abused, elders can be abused, any sort of person that could be in a vulnerable position, let's say LGBTQ, let's say people with chronic conditions, let's say anyone who has to release control in any way of their identity, situation, or any area, can be a victim. Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us in this episode.